discuss that later on, that we have had some focus on employment after release from prison. That was not meant to be an over-focus of that schema or theme. We all know that prison education, of course, is quite important, and I don't think that in any way they should compete, fight against each other. I mean, work in prison or education in prison, because both are very important. And as Kevin Warner will point out tomorrow or the other day, is that a fact that when you ask prisoners in research why they are studying in prison, a part of them, not a part, but very many of them are pointing out that they are studying because they hope they will get better jobs when they are released. That is not, of course, the only reason, of course, but it is one of the reasons. And I have one, it's not a slide, as you see. It is a t-shirt. And I have some slides afterward. One of my favorites here in the recommendation of the Council of Europe is number 4. All those involved in the administration of the prison system and the management of prisons should facilitate and support education as much as possible. I would advise that the as much as possible would be cut out. So it just said facilitate and support education. So maybe EPE will think about that. And number 5, it says here also, education should have no less a status than a work within the prison regime, and prisoners should not lose out financially or otherwise by taking part in education. And as I will tell you afterwards, or during the prison, which is, as you know, I think so it must be in all our countries, that the prisoners get some wages also for the, if they are studying, and the same amount for work. Okay, I am shortly going to tell you about our prisons. As you see, we have 6 prisons with a total capacity of 165 prison places. Some of you might smile about this, but and as you see, 5 of them are very small ones. One is large, and we are going to visit Litla-Hraun afterwards. And Sogn here, the open one. Some of us are also going to visit that one. I will shortly go through this. We have one prison in the north of Iceland, Akureyri, which is the capital of the north. And Endelur has 10 places. That is not because they don't do any crime there. It is because most of our inhabitants are living here in this area. Yeah. So of course we try to have the prisons there. In Akureyri prison, it is a closed prison, and when it comes to studies, 4 or 5, maybe even 6 of the prisoners are studying on a regular basis, and very much through a remote learning. They have access to internet, almost free access, from 8 in the morning until 10, and in the afternoon about 1 hour they can use internet. They can also send emails to their families and receive email, but they are not allowed to go on Facebook and Twitter and those things. But they have very much access to the internet in this closed prison. It was a thing we were a little bit skeptical about first, but as I have mentioned already, you have to start with something new to find out if it works. And this works quite well. It has been very few This has been so for maybe 6 or 7 years in this prison, and there have actually been no problems. One time it was a prisoner was threatening his ex-wife or something like that, and he was sent to another prison. But as a whole, it works quite well. In the other closed prison, this is a reception prison in Reykjavik. It is a very old one, 1874. Kevin Warner, our friend here, has visited the prison. And you know, there is actually no possibility for no studies there. The prisoners stay only for 1-2 weeks or something like that, and then they are transferred to the other prisons. Kópavogur, where we have our females. Today, I think there are 5 females, 2 in the female prison, and 10 males, and 2 women here in the open prison, and 1 at this open prison here. The women, you know, we don't have a special women prison because it is not possible. They are sometimes 2 and sometimes they are 6, and it is too small. And somebody has been a little bit skeptical to having men and women together in a prison. So of course I know there can be problems, but this has been working out quite well. I don't send prisoners who are sentenced for sex offenses in this prison, and not because I'm afraid of they would hurt the women, but more that the women would hurt them. Because, yeah, that's quite true. In 2 open prisons, one which we are going to visit, Sogn and Kvíabryggja on the west, they are small prisons, and there prisoners have even more access to internet than in Akureyri prison, because it is open. They are of course not to view the pornography things, you know, things like that, which you can do at your home maybe, but we don't allow them to do that. There are some firewalls to prevent that, but they can otherwise use the internet quite like a normal person outside in the society. Of course, we control this and we take checks, you know, if they have been doing something they shouldn't have been doing, but it is very seldom that there is some kind of
You're loud enough.
Abuse. Okay, and here in this prison Sogn, it is very, it is from time to time, there have been some of those 20 prisoners, there have been 16 or 18 studying. Some in the university. For a time back there were 6 Icelandic prisoners studying at the university level, and we have prepared for them in Litlahaug here, a room which you will see this afternoon. And of course here you are connected to the internet and you can participate in remote learning. And the university in Iceland, universities in Iceland, they have been helping us with this quite a lot. But you will see this afterward, and you will have the possibility to ask the prisoners questions and speak to them as much as you like or want. Litlahaug, we are going to tell you about Litlahaug more in the bus and when we come there. That is our largest prison, as it's stated here, and it is our Ila or Kumla or whatever those names are in the Nordic countries. Nobody actually wants to be there, you know, like Sing or. There is in each country throughout Europe, I think, or everywhere, there is one prison which is hated among prisoners and their families, and that is Litlahaug. Although here, it is a very, in my opinion, it is a very good prison in many ways, but you can judge it when you have seen it. As I have been maybe telling some of you earlier, we don't lock prisoners up very much in the cells. In the closed prisons, the cells are open at 8 o'clock in the morning and they are closed at 10 or 10:30 in the evening. And it is very good for the mental health, I think. It is not good to be in the cell too long time for your health and for your mental state and so forth and so on. So we have not gone to that point to close prisoners inside the cells or rooms, as we call it in the open prisons, of course. And even in Litla-Hraun, I think I'm right here, I think the prisoners have keys to their cells. Yeah. So they won't steal from each other. They are in a way responsible for their cells, and that is important. Maybe I can, since I have the time, to tell you a little story here about a prisoner, and I sent him to this prison here, Litla-Hraun. He had been sentenced for some sex offense, and he had never been in prison before, and he was not used to this prison system or regime. And he was sent to Litla-Hraun, and he was the prison warden took him up on the second floor, and in his cell he was put there, and he got the key to the cell. And he had with him this little radio, transistor radio. It's a long time ago, little transistor radio. And he, as you come to a new place, you will always have a look outside, the corridor and see what is going on. Like you go to a hotel, or a prison is not a hotel, of course. So he went out of his cell and he had put his radio on the table, and he was going to look at the prison. But he forgot to lock his cell. He forgot to turn the key. When he came back, half an hour later, there was no radio in his cell, because one of his fellow prisoners had stolen the radio. And how did he take it? And that is the point. He ran through the corridor, down 2 stairs, and through another corridor, and when he saw the prison warden, he shouted at him, "There is a thief in the prison! There is a thief in the prison!" So some of our prisoners, they are that's more like us than you know. So there was a thief. He found out that there was a thief in the prison. Okay. Here you can see one slide with a daily average number of prisoners in all prisons in Iceland per 100,000 of inhabitants. That's why that's how we do things in the prison system all over the world per 100,000. And you see that the prison rate here in Iceland is quite low, but it has been rising. It has been rising about maybe 50% from 2000 to 2012. And we have waiting lists. That's not good. That's not good. So we have this problem also, although we have had community service in many years and electronic monitoring using halfway houses, things like that. The prison population has been rising, and if I had more prison places, it would be even higher because of the waiting list. Here is a very short slide which somebody of you maybe have seen. I could find figures from newer figures than from 2008, and Iceland is very down there. And on the throne, of course, is the United States of America, with maybe 800 prisoners per 100,000, and then the Baltic countries, and so you can see this. I think if maybe in some countries it has still been rising, and some countries it has gone down. But it seems to me, and it's not a good thing for me, because I have been studying criminology. I'm not a lawyer, And it seems so that there is a little bit of net whitening in this prison system, because we have new things like electronic monitoring, community service and community sanctions, things like that, which we all are in very much favor of, and I think it is very good and healthy and less recidivism. But still, the prison population is rising in many countries, and that I'm a little bit uneasy about that. And that's of course mostly because that the prison sentences are getting longer, because people often think that the politician, as I mentioned here earlier this day, they think that the solution is longer sentences, which most of us know that is not the solution. If you can point out to me one problem, one crime, one social problem that can be solved with more imprisonment, I would like to hear you mention that to me. Okay? This is a problem in all our countries. When it comes to education in prison, of course, you understand in some countries there are over 30, maybe in Norway I think it is over 30% of the prison population are foreigners, and in my country it is about 20%. Those are, here are total figures, and it has been, as you see, rising from almost none and up to 25, 30 prisoners at each time in our prisons. And very many of them are from Lithuania and Poland. And as our teachers here and study council know, it is not so very easy for us to teach in that language. We have thought a little bit about this, and maybe some of you have also done so, to try to connect those foreign prisoners, because we are supposed to give them education also that is stated in our law and in our rules. Maybe it could be an idea. We have a little bit tried that to connect them to the educational authorities in their own country, and then again it would be through internet. Maybe of course under the supervision of a teacher, but that is a solution I could see, but many are afraid of the internet that way, that those foreigners can abuse it, they can organize more crime, you know, and things like that. And of course that is one, it can be a problem, but problems are to be solved. But this is a problem in all our countries, and maybe we can discuss it later. How, if some of you have some solutions in that field, because very many of them are maybe 2 or 3 years in the prison. They have been smuggling drugs and things like that. Shortly, I will mention this, recidivism. Our politicians, although I mention politicians quite often, it's not that I believe in them every time, but we have to count on them in many ways because of the financial things, you know, to have money. And if we can prove that we are doing well with education in that, and we can prove that it will be less recidivism because of our strong effort in that field, they will maybe give us more money in this field, in the prison. I saw a very interesting report from Norway. Actually, you can ask maybe Susanne Pive, who is here with us, about this report from Norway. There are many research they gathered together with comparative research of how study in prison or education in prison do affect on recidivism, a positive effect on recidivism. So Susanne will maybe telling you about that later. But this shortly, it was a very interesting thing here. I was a part of that myself. we took all prisoners who were released, all prisoners, not a sample, all prisoners released in Iceland, Denmark, Finland, Norway, Sweden in the year 2005 and 2008, and we measured how many percentages of them had new sentence 2 years after. And those are the results of the Icelandic jury, or how do they say it in Eurovision. You know, what I thought at first when I saw those figures, we found out those figures, was that those countries which we always have fought, and they are very much alike. You know, the prisoners are alike. You have been visiting prisons in the Nordic countries, of course, many of you, or most of you even. And we treat prisoners equally well, I think, more or less. But the recidivism rate is quite different. You see, it is high in Sweden and low in Iceland and Norway. There might be reasons for this, and there are reasons for this. Somebody has pointed out that Sweden has a more problematic prison population because they do something else with those who have less crime or less criminal records. Than in Norway, they put people behind bars because they drive too fast and things like that. There are very many short sentences, short-term prisoners in the Norwegian prisons. So that might be one of the reasons. But it was a surprise how different this was. And the second here column are those who started serving a community sentence. It might be community service, or it might be this electronic monitoring, and of course there are much less recidivism in those than in the prison population, of course, because one of the reasons, of course, is that those people here are not so bad social situation as the other one. But I would just like to mention this because I have from time to time showed this to our politicians, and our minister even yesterday mentioned it. And you know, politicians, they don't. Are there some politicians here? No. And I can say they often don't understand the issue. They don't want the figures and facts, and you can take the liberty of saying this is maybe because that we are so clever in our prison system and we have so much studies, but we want more vocational education and things like that. So, and then they smile and give us more money. Okay, shortly there are some points here, and I will now go a little bit fast here. Total number of prisoners in the prison were 154. Okay, in Icelandic prison. That is about 48, 50 prisoners per 100,000 of inhabitants. Total number of prisoners studying is about 25%. It can be 40, it can be a little bit less. In one of the open prisons, a majority of the prisoners are studying, or have been studying from time to time. You will visit that one afterwards. In the reception prison in Reykjavik, no prisoners are studying. And we have this in our prisons. We have the system that teachers are coming from the neighbor schools. We don't have our own prison teachers as they do in Denmark, for instance, and some other countries. We have an agreement with the neighboring schools that they bring education inside our prisons. What is this? This is actually a hen house. Yeah. And why do I have a slide? The hen house? Yeah, the answer is that education, to say it a little bit liberal, education in Iceland prison started actually in a hen house. It started at the prison Litlahaug, which we are going to visit. There was some man who was fond of the prisoners and felt pity for them, he gave this house to the prison, not because of a school, but to have hens. You know, hens lay eggs, you know, you eat eggs and it's very, very healthy. But after it had been used for hens for 2 years, then they found out that it would be more reasonable, sensible to cut the heads of the hens, you know, and eat them, and make this a school room. And so it was in many years. It was many years that they taught prisoners in a hen house like this. It is not a picture of the hen because I don't have a picture of the hen house, but it started in a hen house. My point here is that you don't always, I mean, if you don't have lots of money, we have had crisis here in Iceland and in all your country, maybe more or less, except Norway, of course, where they have the oil, and crisis maybe we can use to rethink and find out new solutions. And the hen house was a solution at that time, and it has done many things very good. Some years later, of course, we had new facilities in Litla-Hraun, and you will see that afterwards. So at last some points here of facts. Full or almost full access to the internet in the 2 open prisons and one of the closed prison, limited access in the other closed one under the supervision of the teacher. I myself have been fighting for this in the prison administration for many years, and I have acceded a little bit in that. Access to the internet is very important, but of course it is not enough. You know, you can't just turn on the internet and expect everything to be fine. That is not so. Prisoners have to be encouraged. It's like if you have a road and a car, you know, to drive to a certain place. It is no use you have a car if you can't drive it. You know, it's something like that. You have to learn to drive the car, and then you can take it to the place you want to do. And that's what we have to do with the internet, and we have always also be sure of that internet, as many other things, can be abused. Sentence planning is important. I don't have to explain this for you. Study counselor, Anna Fríða, is very important. When she came for maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago to her job, it has been rising quite a lot, the number of prisoners studying in our prisons. And she is not only in those 2 prisons we visit now, she travels around in all the other prisons also. Open prisons are very important in this aspect. Halfway house after release from prison is very important. There is tomorrow a workshop here about that thing, which you could maybe take interest in. And it is very different how the different countries use the halfway houses. About 40% of our prisoners in Iceland are released not from the prison but from a halfway house. They have spent maybe some weeks or even up to 1 year in this halfway house, studying or working. The prison staff, of course, have to agree with the importance of prison learning. That has been a problem from time to time in all our countries, and the prison staff has been, I can say that when I started to visit the prisons in Iceland, I worked as a probation officer at that time, and I felt a little bit uneasy from time to time when I came to the prison, and the prisoners wanted to speak to me about things, and the prison guards, you know, old prison guards, they would, what the hell are you doing here? You have been studying abroad, and you are, and the prisoners want to talk to you and not to us, you know. So they were a little bit skeptical of new thinking. But that has changed quite a bit here in Iceland. So that's very good. At last, security matters for teachers and prison must be sufficient. That is quite important. I think you all know those things. So I am going to end this now. If you have some questions for me, we have maybe 5 minutes or so, and then it is lunch, and then the buses and things like after the program as you have ahead of you. So thank you very much.
So, are there any questions to Erlendur? He will be here the whole time, so you have the possibility to ask him on the road today, tomorrow, or Saturday. Maybe we should go to eat now. And it's very important that we will be in the buses 13:30 exactly.
Skal du være i fængsel?
Ja, jeg ved, hvor jeg skal hen. Jeg sætter mig bare i jeg skal se helt noget. Jeg har hørt så meget om det. Det skal jeg også.
Måske lige et stykke.